Hi, and welcome back to Exhibit Extras, where we take you behind the scenes of exhibits in the exhibit making process. So we're back here in the Cedar Grove exhibit, and this time we're going to be looking at some of the community aspect of the Cedar Grove community, which can sort of trace itself back to the 19th century. Josh, you want to tell us about this part of the exhibit?
Sure. So primarily the history we're interpreting here in this section of the exhibit has to deal with churches, which were very seminal in the African American community post-Civil War. It was a place where they could safely gather and just be an actual community. And then we have a few aspects that discuss education, primarily the Douglas School, which was one of the very first African American schools post-Civil War in this area of Tennessee.
Yeah, so you mentioned the role that churches played for African Americans, especially post-Civil War. What role did schools serve for African Americans?
The schools served, again, a communal place where children could primarily gather, but they were institutes of education, which was, up until this point, extremely rare for African American students in the South, where during the Civil War, it was actually outlawed to teach an enslaved person how to read or write, let alone go to a school.
So let's talk about the Douglas School, which, as you mentioned, was a gathering place for this community. The Douglas School started as a one-room schoolhouse. So the Douglas School washes away in a flood, but together with some local churches, sort of rebuilds, with Reverend Breedlove sort of leading that charge and getting the Douglas School rebuilt and then reestablished. And it went from a one-room schoolhouse in its first iteration to, by the 1930s, had expanded to include elementary, high school education, and then it actually served as a school up until 1965 when desegregation happens. So what's going on with the building today?
So it's currently still being used by the school system as an administration building. You can still go there, and it's still quite a bustling hub of community activity for the school board.
Yeah, and it's a recurring theme in renewal efforts, especially in this case. You're taking a school which was a community building, and it's still serving the community from that same space. And you see that in this area. That's really no different than what happens with, say, like the McKinney Center here in Jonesboro or the Langston Center in Johnson City. And one of the reasons why you see sort of an effort to make these spaces still so integral to community is because that's how they always sort of work.
It's kind of their past is their present.
All right, so here behind us we have some items and photographs from some of the churches that were integral to the Cedar Grove community, including some of the robes. So this robe here is from the St. Paul Methodist Church, and Reverend Breedlove was integral in rebuilding the Douglas School and making sure that maintained. With the robes that we have here from St. Paul, and we think this one was from the Browns Chapel, AME Zion Church. Again, kind of like what we talked about with, in our previous video about this exhibit, this gives someone the chance to see an item, right? You're here in this space, but you're looking at this item, and the fact that it's sort of displayed in a long, upstanding way, similar to the Buffalo Soldier uniform that we talked about in our other video, it gives you a chance to visualize how this might have worked. But one of the other good things about this exhibit is, again, a lot of this came from the community and from people like J.C. Augustus, who sort of worked with the community from the Cedar Grove Foundation to get this stuff together. It's added in with photographs. So you've got the robe here on display, but you also have a photograph of Ruth Bowers with the robe and an older photograph of the Reverend that helped rebuild the school. So again, it's a small space, but we're able to try to piece together as much of this stuff as possible. Josh, do you have anything that you want to add about how, like, you can combine sort of two separate themes in one exhibit?
Sure. So if we just look for those lines of continuity, particularly the thread with Reverend Breedlove, who was so integral to the Douglas School, but was also this seminal figure in the congregation, we can take that one small tie and really explore more aspects of the Cedar Grove community, despite having two completely different topics.
Yeah, for sure. And then, the way, just based on layout, right? Our Buffalo Soldier uniform is actually here in the community space. So it does give it's an anchor, as we mentioned, to Jonesboro, but it's also an anchor in the exhibit because you're going from military to military within the community, and it sort of it does kind of help tie everything together. And I think that word that you mentioned, continuity, is so important in museum work and exhibit design. But yeah, I think that's it for the Cedar Grove community exhibit. Again, be sure to check it out if you have not seen it yet. Come down and check out the exhibit, or keep up with us online and learn more about some of the other stuff that we have going on. All right, thanks.